The first sign that something was wrong came quietly, almost politely, just a faint whisper that drifted across the long, empty corridor of the abandoned research complex. Alex Carver stopped walking and turned his head, listening. He wasn't supposed to hear anything. The building had been CO for 12 years. Ever since the incident the government still insisted had never happened. His flashlight beam trembled slightly as he held it out in front of him. The illuminating dust particles suspended in stagnant air. The corridor stretched into darkness on both sides, lined with peeling walls and rusted metal doors. Everything was silent, dead silent, yet Alex felt the whisper echoing inside his skull, as if it had bypassed his ears entirely. Probably the pipes, he muttered to himself, though he didn't believe it. Not after what he had already seen. He had been inside the complex for less than 20 minutes, but the deeper he walked, the more it felt like the building was breathing, like it had been asleep for years and was now slowly waking up. Alex pulled a small recorder from his jacket pocket, pressed the red button, and spoke softly. Entry log 1. I'm currently in Sector C, approaching the restricted wing. Previous radiation scans show zero danger. No structural collapse. So far. No anomalies. A lie. He didn't know why he said it. Maybe because acknowledging the truth out loud would give it power. He continued walking. The research facility, officially known as Hawthorne Neurodynamic Institute, had been shut down after what the newspapers at the time called a catastrophic systems malfunction. But classified documents, leaked years later, hinted at something far stranger, something tied to neural resonance experiments, subconscious mapping, and something they called phase synchronization protocol. Alex's older brother, Daniel, had been one of the lead researchers, and he had never walked out. That was why Alex was here. Not as a journalist, not as a government contractor, just a brother searching for something, answers, remains, closure. He didn't know. He only knew he couldn't stay away anymore. Not after receiving the anonymous message 2 nights ago. Daniel is still inside. Find room 417. He didn't know who sent it. The message had no return number, no metadata, nothing. But it was enough. Sector C ended with a metal security door half open, its locking mechanism blown out from the inside. Alex knelt, examining the scattered bolts and twisted metal. Whatever forced this open wasn't trying to escape, it had been trying to get deeper into the facility. He stood, pushed the door wider, and stepped through. The temperature dropped almost instantly. His breath steamed faintly as he exhaled. The lights flickered on overhead. Alex nearly jumped backward. The building had no power. He had verified the generators were completely offline. Yet the lights were on. A low hum vibrated through the floor, subtle but unmistakably rhythmic, like a pulse. Daniel, what were you people doing here? Alex whispered. The room beyond the door was enormous, a central operations hall filled with rows of terminals. But every monitor displayed the same thing, a vertical line, like an inactive heart monitor, occasionally spiking for a fraction of a second as though responding to his presence. He moved deeper into the hall, passing by shattered glass, overturned chairs, and what looked like faint burn marks along the floor, signs of chaos, panic, maybe even violence. When he reached the central terminal, the vertical line on the monitor suddenly flashed bright red. The whisper returned. This time it was clearer. Not words, more like fragmented thoughts, shards of memory, emotion without language. Cold sweat ran down Alex's back. His hands trembled. Then the monitor changed. A message typed itself across the screen, letter by letter. Alex, don't trust the corridors. His throat tightened. Someone or something knew he was here. He stepped away from the screen just as something metallic clattered behind him. He spun around, flashlight raised. Nothing. Only the echo of the sound, slowly fading. Then the lights above him flickered again, once, twice, and everything went dark. He froze. The whisper grew louder. Behind him, right behind him. Alex turned slowly and saw a silhouette at the far end of the hall, illuminated only by the faint glow of emergency strips on the floor. The figure stood unnaturally still, its head tilted as if listening to something only it could hear. His breath caught in his throat. "Daniel," he whispered. The figure twitched. Jerky. "Wrong." Then it began to walk toward him. No, not walk. Stutter toward him, appearing closer every time the lights flickered, as if skipping frames in reality itself. A flash. Closer. Another flash. 5 meters away. Another 3 meters. "Stop!" Alex shouted, stumbling backward. The lights went out completely. Silence. Then, right beside his ear, a voice, human, unmistakably human, whispered, 417. The lights snapped back on. The figure was gone. Alex stood gasping, heart pounding, wiping sweat from his brow with a shaking hand. His flashlight beam swept across the hall but found nothing. His voice quivered as he raised the recorder. "Log 2. I'm not alone in here." He turned toward the east corridor. The sign above it was half broken, but he could still read the faded numbers. "Gives rooms 443 or OM 417 was that way." He swallowed hard, tightened the straps of his backpack, and forced himself forward, step by step, deeper into the whispering corridor, toward the truth, toward whatever waited inside room 417. The hallway leading toward the 400 series rooms felt longer than any corridor Alex had walked so far. His footsteps echoed strangely delayed, as though the sound had to fight its way through the air before reaching his ears. Every few seconds he glanced behind him, convinced the silhouette from the operations hall would be there, slowly stuttering closer. But the corridor remained empty. Cold, silent, stretching endlessly into dim light. He kept walking. Every door he passed had been sealed shut with heavy locking bars, but most of them were warped or twisted, as though something inside had tried to force its way out. Scratches marred the metal. Impact dents bulged outward. One door looked as if it had been heated from within until it buckled like softened clay. Alex tried not to imagine what had happened here. He focused on numbers painted above each doorway. 402, 404, 408. His flashlight flickered again. He tightened his grip. "Not now," he whispered. "Come on." The beam steadied. "For now." At room 411 he paused. The door was slightly ajar, just enough to reveal darkness inside. Something about the room pulled at him like a faint tug at the back of his mind. He stepped closer despite himself. "Do not trust the corridors." The message on the monitor echoed through his memory. He forced himself to move on. 413, 415. Then he saw it. Room 417. The door was shut, completely intact. No dents, no scratches, no sign of forced entry. Unlike every other room in the hallway, had looked almost preserved. His hand trembled as he reached for the handle. It turned smoothly. "Unlock." Double quotes. "Daniel," he whispered, barely breathing the name. He pushed the door open. The room was small, -1 by a single weak emergency lamp in the corner. Dust coated every surface, desks, shelves, equipment cases, but otherwise, the place was untouched. No overturned furniture, no signs of struggle. Just stillness. And in the center, something that didn't belong, a chair, facing a large, wall-mounted device that looked like a mixture of medical scanner and experimental neural interface. He stepped inside. The door clicked shut behind him. Alex spun around. Grabbing the handle, it turned easily. Not locked. But that didn't comfort him, because he hadn't closed the door. Something else had. He took a slow breath, raised the recorder again. "Log 3. I've entered room 417. Equipment appears intact. No signs of damage. Or of Daniel." He shut off the recorder and approached the wall-mounted device. It resembled an oversized head brace connected to a cluster of cables and a dormant monitor. A faint imprint on the chair cushion suggested someone had sat in it not too long ago, certainly not 12 years ago. Alex brushed dust off the console. The moment his fingers touched the surface, the monitor flared to life. He jumped back. Lines of white text scrolled rapidly, too fast to read before freezing on a single sentence. "Subject link active. Waiting for reception." Then, Slowly, the screen began typing something new. Alex, please sit down. His legs went cold. No, he whispered. No, not until another line appeared. He is waiting for you. His heart cracked open. Daniel. He looked at the chair again, at the cables, at the faint imprint on the cushion. Is he alive? Alex whispered. The monitor typed. He is not dead. Not yet. Not yet. The words punched through him. A metallic creak sounded behind him. Alex turned instinctively, raising the flashlight, but the room was empty except for shadows. The sound repeated, this time from above. He lifted the flashlight toward the ceiling. A ventilation grate hung open. He stepped back toward the console, breath quickening. What's in the vents? The monitor typed instantly. Not what, who. Cold shivers spread across his arms. Something moved inside the vent, soft, scrabbling, like fingertips brushing metal. Alex backed away until his legs hit the chair. The monitor typed again. Sit, now. His pulse hammered. He didn't want to. Everything inside him screamed to leave, to run, to forget the message he'd received. But Daniel's name kept echoing in his mind. He lowered himself into the chair. The neural brace lowered automatically, closing around his head with a quiet hydraulic hiss. Alex flinched, but it didn't hurt, just pressure. Then darkness filled his vision, not from closing his eyes, but from the machine. A voice, Daniel's voice, spoke inside his mind. Alex, God, please tell me you can hear me. Alex gasped, eyes wide though he saw nothing. Danny, where are you? A strained breath echoed through him, raw, weak, terrified. I'm in the walls, Daniel whispered. They made me a conduit, a living node. Don't trust what you see. It isn't me. The temperature dropped sharply. The whispering returned, this time all around the room, leaking from the vents, the corners, the shadows. Daniel's voice trembled. Alex, something is coming. Something wearing my shape. You need to get out. The screen on the console flashed violently, cutting him off. Alarms pulsed through the room. A new message forced its way onto the monitor. Link terminated. Hostile presence detected. Metallic thudding echoed through the corridor outside. Slow, heavy, getting closer. Alex ripped the neural brace off, stumbled out of the chair, and grabbed his flashlight. The door began to bow inward, something pushing from the other side. Then Daniel's broken voice whispered one last time from the speakers above. Alex, it found you. The door burst open. Something stepped into room 417. I didn't scream when it stepped through the doorway. I should have, any normal man would have, but something in me shut down the moment I saw its silhouette, a kind of instinctive paralysis. The same frozen shock a deer feels when it realizes the shape in front of it isn't a tree but a wolf. The creature stood unnaturally still, framed by the broken metal door. My flashlight trembled in my grip, the beam shaking across its body. At first, I thought my eyes were playing tricks on me. The shape, the height, even the way it slightly tilted its head, it resembled Daniel. But it wasn't him. The skin was wrong, too tight in some places, too loose in others. Like someone tried to replicate a human face from memory but didn't fully understand how muscles worked. The eyes were the worst, hollow, glassy, reflecting the flashlight like an animal's. They were too wide, too fixed, and too empty to belong to any living person. Its jaw shifted, cracking lightly, as though it had been put on crooked. Daniel, I whispered out of some desperate instinct. It responded, not with a word, with a sound, a wet clicking, like someone tapping fingernails against bone. Slow, deliberate pattern. The noise prickled every nerve in my body. I instinctively stepped back, bumping into the neural chair behind me. The creature stepped forward, not walking, sliding. Its feet whispered across the floor as if friction didn't apply to it, like its bones weren't inside where they should be. My mind went blank. Run. That was the only clear thought. I lunged sideways toward the far corner of the room, just as the thing jerked forward with a sudden, stomach-turning motion, the kind of movement no human body could make without snapping itself in half. Its arm shot out, long fingers curling inches from my face. I hit the floor hard, rolled, and scrambled on all fours toward the open vent. I didn't want to go in there. God knew what else was crawling through that system, but staying in the room meant dying. Or worse, up behind me, the creature released a sharp, clicking scream. Metallic, shattering. It cut into my ears like broken glass. My vision blurred from the shock. I pulled myself into the vent. The moment my legs vanished inside, the thing slammed against the metal grate behind me. The impact rang through the entire ventilation system like a gong. Dust cascaded everywhere. The walls shook. Something popped loose behind me. I crawled faster, coughing, my elbows scraping metal. Another slam, then another. The creature was trying to follow. Its fingertips clawed through the grate. I kicked wildly until the metal bent inward again, blocking its reach. Then I crawled deeper, ignoring the pain tearing through my knees and palms. After what felt like hours, though it must have been only seconds, the sounds behind me stopped. Silence swallowed the vent, but silence was somehow worse. "Danny," I whispered, voice trembling, "what the hell did they do to you?" A faint sound responded, not from behind me, but ahead, whispering. Not English, not words, just breathy, rhythmic murmurs, like someone reciting a memory they didn't fully understand. I froze in place. The whispers were moving, closer, growing in intensity, as if creeping toward me through branching tunnels. I didn't wait to see who or what was making them. I kept crawling fast, hand over hand, until a faint glow appeared up ahead, another grate. I pressed my face to it, squinting through dust. A small lab room sat below, papers scattered, a cracked tablet on the floor, 2 overturned chairs. Empty. Normal, at least compared to everything else. I kicked the grate open and dropped into the room. My legs nearly buckled, but I steadied myself against a table and pulled the recorder from my pocket. My hand shook as I pressed the button. Log 4. I'm inside an auxiliary lab. Something followed me. It looked like Daniel, but it wasn't him. It wasn't human. The recorder captured my ragged breathing. I think the facility used a lot of people for experiments. Maybe neural mapping, maybe replication. I don't know. But whatever came through that door, I swallowed hard. It wasn't alive in any way we understand the word. I stopped the recording. A sudden, sharp electronic beep made me jump. The cracked tablet on the floor flickered to life on its own. Its shattered screen barely functioned, displaying only fragments of light and broken color. But then the pixels rearranged themselves into something recognizable. "The facility knows you're here." Static crawled across the screen. Then another message appeared. "Don't let it touch you." My blood turned to ice. "I know," I whispered. "Trust me, I'm not planning to." The tablet flickered again. "Daniel tried to warn you. He is still inside, but not where you think." I knelt closer. "Where is he?" The screen glitched violently black. Then white, then lines of corrupted text. Finally, 3 words stabilized. "Below the heart." Heart? I looked around the room. There were maps on the far wall, schematics of the facility, floor plans, neural diagrams. One caught my eye, a top-down layout of the entire complex. The central section was labeled simply Core. The heart, a deeper layer existed beneath it, and marked Hidden. That had to be where Daniel was trapped. Before I could study it further, the lights in the room flickered. They weren't supposed to work at all. The power had failed years ago. But something was overriding the system, turning things on that should have stayed dead. The door to the room unlocked with a slow mechanical click. My pulse spiked. I stepped back, raising the flashlight in trembling hands. The handle turned slowly. I braced myself, but the door didn't swing open fully. Only an inch. Just enough for me to see one thing, a human hand, pressed flat against the glass, palm covered in dried blood. Not a creature's hand, a person's. Voice, faint and hoarse, whispered from the other side. "Alex, please." My heart almost stopped. It was Daniel's voice, not the warped echo, not the distorted machine version. His real voice, alive, weak, desperate. I rushed to the door and threw it open. The hallway outside was dark, stretching endlessly in both directions. Daniel wasn't there. Only the bloody handprint remained, but the air still carried the warm vibration of someone who had just spoken. "Danny," I shouted, stepping into the hall. "Danny, where are you?" Silence answered. Then something moved behind me. Not a creature, not a machine, something soft, human, breathing. I spun around. A shape stood just inside the lab, a man, or something that wanted me to think it was a man. It stepped into the dim light, and I realized with a sickening drop in my stomach that it wasn't the creature from before. This one was worse, because this one looked exactly like me. For a moment, I couldn't move. The thing standing in front of me, wearing my shape, my posture, my exact face, didn't blink. Its eyes were open too wide, the way a corpse's might be after rigor mortis has locked the lids. But everything else, the angles, the skin tone, even the faint scar above my eyebrow, it was perfect, too perfect. "Stayed back," I whispered, raising the flashlight like a weapon. My double tilted its head to match mine, like a synchronized reflection. When I stepped back, it stepped forward. When I breathed in, its chest expanded at the same rhythm, as if it was listening to my lungs and copying the sound, but it didn't breathe out. Its chest stayed full, puffed unnaturally, skin stretching like a balloon that couldn't release air. Something inside it squirmed. I stumbled backward into the hall. My double followed, moving with fluid precision, like it was walking through water while everything else moved through air. "Say something," I demanded. "If you're supposed to be me, say something." Its mouth stretched open, but no sound came out. A long string of saliva dripped from its jaw, trembling like a spider's thread. Then it smiled. Not my smile. A wider one. A practiced imitation. Muscles pulling too hard. Teeth showing too much. My stomach lurched. It raised its hand slowly, palm facing up as if offering something. But the hand wasn't empty. Something was clutched between its fingers. A torn piece of cloth. Dark blue. A familiar shade. I looked down at my own shirt. A chunk of fabric was missing from the lower seam. The same shape, the same tear pattern. It wasn't showing me a copy. It was showing me it had touched me once before. A memory surfaced, foggy, distant. A moment weeks ago when I felt something graze my leg while I slept in my apartment. I had dismissed it as a dream. Now I wasn't so sure. "Don't come closer," I warned again. My voice quivered. It stepped closer anyway. I ran. The hallway stretched before me like a tunnel collapsing inward. My footsteps echoed off concrete as I sprinted toward the main corridor. Lights flickered overhead, dying bulbs struggling to stay alive, casting brief flashes of my shadow on the walls. But my shadow wasn't alone. Another shadow ran beside mine, longer, faster. Wrong. I turned a corner sharply, nearly slipping. A metal door stood ahead with faded writing. "Core access, authorized personnel online." Exactly where I needed to go. I slammed into the door, grabbed the manual lever, and pulled. Rust screamed as it gave way just enough for me to squeeze through. My double followed. Its fingers jammed through the narrowing gap as I shoved the door closed. Long, pale, jointed fingers, too many knuckles bending the wrong way. The hand convulsed, trying to force itself through the tiny opening. I pushed harder. The fingers stretched. The bones snapped. The flesh tore without bleeding. Finally, the hand recoiled like elastic, snapping back into the darkness. I locked the door, chest heaving. The room I had entered was enormous, an atrium-sized chamber with a single structure dominating the center. A circular shaft stretching downward into pitch-black depth. Railings circled the perimeter, and a staircase spiraled along the wall. A sign hung crookedly beside the entrance. "Neural integration pit, the heart below the heart." That's where the tablet said Daniel was. I gripped the railing and leaned over the edge. A warm draft rose from the darkness below, like the pit itself was breathing. Far beneath, faint red lights pulsed in a slow, steady rhythm like a heartbeat echoing through machinery. I started down the stairs. With each step, the air grew warmer, thicker, humid with something organic. Halfway down, I heard movement above. I looked up. The door I had just locked rattled violently. Something slammed into it, once, twice, hard enough to bend metal. Dust drifted from the hinges. The third slam broke the lock. The creature stepped inside. It no longer walked like me. The imitation was failing. Its movements became jerky, disjointed, limbs twitching at random intervals. A puppet with invisible strings tangled. Its face had changed to drooping slightly on one side, like the skin was melting, but it still had my eyes. That was the worst part. I ran down the stairs. The creature lunged after me. Its footsteps staggered but fast, far too fast. Metal clanged as it descended, its distorted joints popping with each forced step. When I reached the bottom, I saw the true entrance, a narrow tunnel carved into the foundation, lit only by the faint red pulse. It felt like stepping into a throat, tight, warm, alive. As I entered the tunnel, something brushed my shoulder, thin strands hanging from the ceiling. I shone my flashlight upward. Not wires, nerve fibers, organic cords pulsing faintly with internal blood flow. The entire heart was alive, a machine grown, not built. Human biology woven into synthetic architecture. No wonder the facility had shut down. No wonder something like my double existed. This place didn't just copy people. It consumed them. A choked sob echoed somewhere deeper inside the tunnel. Daniel. I sprinted toward the sound. The tunnel opened into a cavernous biomechanical chamber, filled with rows of gelatinous pods fused into the walls like tumors. Inside each pod, blurry silhouettes floated in translucent, fluid, half-formed bodies twitching in dreamless movement. Some faces were missing. Some had too many. Some were trying to claw their way out but lacked the strength. And there, near the center, illuminated by a pulsing crimson glow, Daniel, suspended in a half-open pod, wires drilled into his skull, chest rising shallowly. His eyes fluttered open when he heard me. "Alex," he whispered, voice faint as a dying ember. "You made it." I ran to him and tore at the cables. "Don't talk. I'm getting you out." His hand gripped my wrist weakly, stopping me. "No, listen." His pupils were blown wide with terror. "It isn't copying us." I froze. "It's forgetting us." "What?" "It tries to remember the people it absorbs. But it can't. It gets confused. That's why the copies look wrong." His voice cracked. "That's why they want us. They're hungry for what they lost." Behind me, footsteps echoed in the tunnel. Slow, and even, dragging. My double had arrived. Daniel looked past me, eyes filling with horror. "Alex, you need to run. I'm not leaving you." His voice rose, not loud but sharp, terrified. "That thing behind you, it isn't a failed copy." I turned slowly. The creature stepped into the red glow. Its face had changed again, skin stretched tight, bones rearranging, reshaping. Not into me. Into someone else. Someone familiar. Someone whose photograph sat in my apartment for years. My brother, who died 2 years ago. It wasn't copying me. It wasn't hunting me. It was remembering me through the person I had lost. I staggered backward, shaking. Daniel whispered, voice breaking. "That's what they do, Alex. They were the dead first." The creature reached toward me and smiled with my brother's stolen face. I don't remember screaming, but Daniel later told me I did. A raw, broken sound tore out of me when the creature stepped forward, wearing my brother's face, Jacob's face reconstructed in horrifying detail. The same jawline, the same faint crease between the brows, even the little chipped edge on the left canine he'd gotten from falling off his bike at 12. It wasn't just resemblance. It was him. Or the closest thing a dying machine organism could make from the fragments it had stolen. "Alex," Daniel whispered, his voice trembling. "You need to move." But I was frozen. Jacob, or what war? Him tilted its head the exact way he used to when he tried to understand something complicated. It took one step closer, and its foot landed with a wet sound, like something inside its bones was softening, melting. "I know you're not him," I whispered, though my throat barely let the words out. The creature paused, blinking, trying to understand, trying to remember. and then it spoke. But not with its mouth. A wet scraping sound vibrated through the chamber, like a radio tuning in and out. And then, from deep in its chest, came a voice stretched thin and warped. Alex. My knees buckled. That was his voice. Not perfectly, not fully, but his tone, his cadence, the exact way he used to say my name when he wanted to ask me something difficult. It reached for me, and I stepped back. Its expression twitched, eyes widening with confusion like a child dropped into a memory it didn't understand. The skin on its face rippled, like something underneath was shifting, trying to adjust. And then it spoke again, more clearly. Why did you leave? My lungs collapsed. That was what Jacob asked me the night before he died. A fight we never resolved. The words he shouted before slamming the door and driving off into the rain. The machine hadn't just copied him physically. It had reached into me, into my guilt, into the places I never let anyone see. It had pulled the memory out and given it shape. Daniel's voice cracked from behind me. Alex, it's using you to stabilize itself. That's why it followed you. That's why it changed. He tried to pull himself free from the pod, but the wires twitched and tightened around him like tendons. Alex, listen to me, Daniel gasped. It's not your brother. It's a hollow echo. It doesn't understand what it's showing you. But I wasn't sure I could believe that, because the creature stepped closer and whispered, I miss you. My vision blurred. For a split second, I wasn't in that hellish chamber. I was back in the cramped apartment Jacob and I shared in our 20s. A crappy couch, a half-broken TV, a shared pizza on the table, the familiar crackle of his laughter, a memory so real I tasted it. But then the creature twitched violently, its jaws snapping open too wide, its face tearing at the edges like overstretched plastic. The illusion cracked. This thing wasn't him. It never would be. A sudden metallic groan echoed through the chamber. The pods along the walls pulsed in unison. Something deeper within the heart began to awaken. Daniel's voice sharpened with panic. Alex, the system is triggering a reset. If it completes, everything in here, including us, gets erased. The creature lunged. Instinct took over. I grabbed a broken metal support rod from the floor and swung wildly. The rod struck the creature's shoulder. The skin sagged, then snapped back into place like gel. It didn't bleed. It didn't react. It simply mimicked my movement, raising its own arm with a piece of jagged metal that formed from the mass of its shifting body. As if the machine decided I needed to fight myself. Alex, Daniel shouted. The core, behind it, the hearts, pulsing lights focused into a single glowing column behind the creature, an exposed neural mass pulsing with electricity and organic fluid. A weak point, maybe the only one. I dodged another blow and sprinted past the creature, but its arm stretched, literally stretched like hot wax, grabbing my wrist and yanking me back. The impact threw me onto the floor so hard my teeth clicked. The creature dropped down over me, pinning me, pressing its face inches from mine. Jacob's eyes stared into mine, and for a moment I broke. I'm sorry, I whispered. I should have been there. I should have stopped you. I should have. The creature twitched. Its expression softened, just enough. And in that tiny, fragile second, I shoved the metal rod straight into its eye. A burst of steaming black fluid erupted. The creature convulsed violently, its body losing shape, features melting, limbs collapsing inward. I didn't wait for it to recover. I ran. It lunged blindly behind me, shrieking in a jagged, broken version of Jacob's voice, but it slammed into the pod frames instead of me. The chamber shook as pods ruptured, and fluid splashed across the floor. I reached the neural column. And with everything I had left, I tore open the casing and ripped out the pulsating organ at its center. The entire facility roared. Lights burst, the ground trembled. The pods ruptured, one by one, releasing half-formed creatures that collapsed lifelessly. Behind me, the Jacob thing staggered, its body losing all structure, collapsing into a puddle of twitching tissue, but not before whispering Lex, a final glitch, a final false memory. And then it dissolved into nothing. I turned to Daniel. The wires are on him loosened, releasing him. I helped him to his feet. He could barely stand, his body half limp from the extraction systems. We need to go, he said weakly. Now. We climbed the spiral stairs as the heart collapsed behind us, each step shaking beneath our feet. Steam burst from ruptured pipes. The walls cracked open, revealing veins of glowing organic tissue shriveling and dying. When we finally reached the surface, dawn was breaking, the air was cold. Real, alive. We stood on the hill overlooking the fake storage building that hid the facilities. Entrance. The ground beneath it sagged, then imploded inward, burying everything under hundreds of tons of earth. It was over. Daniel sank to the ground, shaking. We destroyed it. But Alex, what if there are more sites? I didn't answer. My mind wasn't in the present. It was still replaying the final moment of the creature. The way it said my name, the way Jacob used to. I told myself it wasn't him. I told myself it was just a machine, but on the breeze, carried from the collapsing earth, came a faint echo. Maybe just my exhausted imagination, a broken, soft whisper. Why did you leave? I closed my eyes. And for the first time since Jacob died, I answered. I didn't. I whispered into the cold morning air. I'm here. But the wind didn't answer, only silence.